0317 hours, June 12, 1943. HMS Vigilant, Royal Navy destroyer, North Atlantic Patrol. The sea stretched black under starless sky. Commander William Patch Patterson stood on the bridge, salt wind cutting across his face, watching radar sweeps paint green circles on the scope. The ocean smelled of brine and diesel fuel. Engine vibrations hummed through the deck plating. Behind them, convoys HX-194 struggled through 8-foot swells. 43 merchant vessels, food, ammunition, fuel for Britain, everything that mattered. Patterson had been hunting U-boats for 18 months, 5 kills, 3 probables. He knew their patterns. They hunted in wolf packs, attacked at dawn, used surface running to close distance, then dove for torpedo attacks. The radio crackled. Hydrophone contact bearing 040, submarine signatures, multiple contact. Patterson grabbed the voice tube. All stations, action stations, this is not a drill. But something felt wrong. The contacts were too close, too obvious. German U-boats didn't make this much noise unless they wanted to be found. Patterson studied the plot. 5 signatures, spread across 10 miles. Classic wolf pack formation, but positioned like bait. Then, silence. The sonar operator looked up, confusion in his eyes. Contacts lost, sir. All of them. Just vanished. Patterson knew that sound. Diesels shutting down, electric motors engaging. The submarines had dove, but not to hide. They were positioning for coordinated attack. In 30 minutes, sunrise would silhouette the convoy against the dawn sky. Perfect torpedo conditions. Standard doctrine said stay with the convoy, maintain defensive screen, protect the merchants, wait for submarine approach, then counterattack. Patterson had used that doctrine successfully 5 times. Today, it would get them all killed. Patterson studied the sea. Empty water. Somewhere beneath those waves, 5 U-boats were moving into attack position. By the time they surfaced to fire, half the convoy would be burning. He needed to change the equation. Force the submarines to surface before they reached firing position. Make them fight on his terms. Patterson walked to the chart table. The morning fishing fleet from Aberdeen should be 30 miles northeast. Small boats, wooden hulls, no military value. The Germans ignored them, but Patterson saw opportunity where doctrine saw irrelevance. He called his executive officer. Jennings, prepare a boarding party. Small boat crew, minimal equipment. We're going fishing. Lieutenant Jennings stared at him. Sir, we're in the middle of submarine contact. Now isn't exactly the time for recreation. Patterson smiled grimly. Jennings didn't understand yet. Neither would the Germans. That was the point. 20 minutes later, HMS Vigilant's motor launch pulled away from the destroyer's side. 12 men aboard, wearing fishermen's sweaters instead of naval uniforms. Nets and tackle boxes covered military radios and weapons. Patterson himself wore a wool cap and oilskins, looked like any Scottish fisherman heading out for dawn catch. The launch puttered away at 8 knots, loud, obvious, completely innocent. Behind them, HMS Vigilant continued patrol pattern, maintaining the illusion of standard convoy defense. Patterson checked his watch. Sunrise in 45 minutes. The U-boats would surface soon to position for their attack. They'd see a fishing boat in international waters, nothing threatening, nothing worth a torpedo. They'd be wrong.
The plan was simplicity itself, wrapped in audacity. German submarines surfaced to use diesel engines and navigate by periscope. While surfaced, they were vulnerable to ramming attacks from fast surface vessels. The problem was getting close enough without being detected and sunk. Fishing boats solved that problem. They belonged on these waters. U-boats expected them, ignored them, until it was too late. Patterson's launch carried 50 pounds of explosives hidden beneath fishing nets, magnetic mines disguised as tackle boxes, and enough small arms to take a submarine bridge if boarding became necessary. But the real weapon was deception. German U-boat commanders thought like naval officers. They saw military threats in military terms. Destroyers meant danger, corvettes meant depth charges, Aircraft meant attack. Fishing boats meant nothing. Patterson thought like a fisherman who happened to command a destroyer. The first U-boat surfaced at 0352 hours. Conning tower broke water 2 miles northeast, black silhouette against gray sky. Lookouts posted, diesel engines coughing to life. Standard procedure for surface running to attack position. Patterson's launch maintained steady course toward the submarine, puttering along at fishing boat speed. Radio check with HMS Vigilant. All stations, we have a fish on the line. Tally-ho! The U-boat paid no attention. German lookouts scanned for military vessels, aerial threats, escort warships. They didn't waste time watching local fishing boats. Fetal oversight. At 800 yards, Patterson could see the submarine's hull number painted on the conning tower, U-571. He recognized it from intelligence reports. Veteran boat, experienced crew, 11 confirmed merchant kills. Today would be different. The launch approached from the submarine's port quarter, maintaining innocent fishing boat behavior, nets trailing, engines sputtering, crew visible on deck hauling tackle. Nothing threatening about 12 Scottish fishermen trying to make a living. U-571's lookouts never looked their way. At 300 yards, Patterson gave the order, "Drop nets. All hands prepare for contact." The fishing nets fell away. Beneath them, a Royal Marine with a Lewis gun opened fire on the submarine's bridge. Tracer rounds sparked off the conning tower. German lookouts fell. Others dove for the hatch. But Patterson wasn't trying to sink U-571 with small arms fire. He was creating confusion, forcing the submarine to crash dive before reaching attack position. Every second the U-boat spent underwater was time lost from the surface approach they needed for effective torpedo attack. The submarine's dive klaxon wailed. Men trundled down the hatch. Ballast tanks flooded. But diving takes time, and Patterson had closed to ramming distance. The motor launch struck U-571's hull just aft the conning tower. Not enough mass to penetrate the pressure hull, but enough to damage external equipment. Hydrophone arrays crushed. Periscope bent. Navigation lights shattered. Patterson's men dropped magnetic mines onto the submarine's deck before the U-boat completely submerged. The mines wouldn't explode for 20 minutes, but they didn't need to. The psychological effect was immediate. U-571's captain knew his boat had been attacked by what appeared to be a fishing vessel. He knew mysterious devices had been attached to his hull. He knew his crew was shaken. Standard procedure said continue the attack, but common sense said get away from whatever British trick this was. The submarine dove deep and ran southeast, away from the convoy. Mission aborted. 1 down, 4 to go. Patterson's launch returned to HMS Vigilant for fresh supplies and ammunition. Jennings met them at the ladder, excitement in his voice. "Sir, we're tracking 2 more submarines surfacing to the north. Same distance, same bearing pattern." Patterson grinned. "Excellent. Prepare another fishing expedition."
The second attack went even better than the first. U-203 surfaced at 0418 hours, 3 miles from convoy track. Patterson's launch approached from the dawn side, using early morning glare to mask their final approach. This time, they carried something special. Jennings had found white phosphorus rounds for the Lewis gun. Military fishing boats don't usually carry incendiary ammunition, but desperate times called for innovative tackle. The phosphorus rounds struck U-203's conning tower and ignited, filling the bridge with white smoke and chemical fire. The submarine's lookouts abandoned their posts immediately. Crash dive procedures initiated before the U-boat captain fully understood what was happening. Patterson's crew dropped more magnetic mines and several smoke floats. The mines were real, not psychological weapons. Jennings had armed them with 30-pound charges, enough to hole a pressure hull. U-442's captain ordered emergency crash dive, but panic makes men clumsy. The submarine's ballast tanks flooded unevenly. The U-boat went down bow first, too steep, too fast. 20 minutes later, the magnetic mines exploded against the submarine's hull while U-442 was attempting to surface. The boat broke apart at 200 feet depth, all hands lost. 3 down, 2 to go. Word of the fishing boat attacks spread through German radio traffic.
The remaining submarines, U-168 and U-629, maintained radio silence but changed tactics. Instead of surfacing for standard approach, they attempted submerged attack from long range. Patterson anticipated this. He'd forced the submarines to fight underwater, where their speed was limited and their battery power finite. HMS Vigilance sonar could track them easily. The destroyer made contact with U-168 at 0512 hours, bearing 270, range 3,000 yards. Standard depth charge attack pattern. The submarine survived the first run, but was forced to surface with battery damage. U-168 surfaced 2 miles from the convoy, directly between HMS Vigilant and the merchant ships. Perfect position for torpedo attack, except Patterson's fishing boat was waiting.
This time, the submarine's lookouts were ready. They opened fire immediately with both deck gun and machine guns. 20mm shells and small arms fire concentrated on the launch. But Patterson had learned from 3 previous engagements. His boat carried smoke floats fore and aft. When German fire became accurate, he activated the smoke, concealing the launch's position and approach vector. The fishing boat emerged from the smoke cloud at point-blank range. German gunners couldn't depress their weapons enough to engage. Patterson's Marines boarded the submarine directly, captured the bridge, and forced the crew to surrender. U-168 became the first German submarine captured by a fishing boat in the history of naval warfare. 4 down, 1 to go. U-629 was the smartest of the Wolfpack commanders. He'd monitored radio traffic from the other submarines, understood that standard tactics weren't working, and adapted accordingly. Instead of surfacing for attack, U-629 fired torpedoes from maximum submerged range. 4 torpedoes at the convoy's lead elements, fired blind based on hydrophone bearings and estimated convoy speed. All 4 torpedoes missed. Convoy HX-194 had altered course during the submarine attacks, disrupting German targeting calculations. U-629 surfaced 3 miles east of the convoy to assess damage and reposition for another attack. The submarine's captain was experienced, cautious, professional. He posted extra lookouts, maintained maximum surface speed, kept the boat ready for immediate crash dive. None of which helped when Patterson's fishing boat approached from directly ahead, bow on to the submarine, offering minimal target profile while closing at maximum speed. The German lookouts spotted the fishing boat at 1,500 yards but dismissed it as another fishing boat fleeing the combat area. U-629's captain was focused on the convoy, calculating torpedo firing solutions, positioning for the kill that would justify losing 4 submarines to capture 1. He never saw the fishing boat's final approach until Patterson's crew opened fire at 300 yards. By then it was too late for crash dive procedures. U-629 was committed to surface action. The submarine's deck gun engaged the fishing boat while the captain ordered flank speed to close torpedo firing range on the convoy. Standard submarine tactics. Ignore minor threats, focus on primary mission. Patterson had different priorities. He ordered his coxswain to ram the submarine amidships, just forward of the conning tower where the hole was narrowest. Full power, direct collision course. The fishing boat struck U-629 at 15 knots, wooden hull against steel pressure hull. The launch disintegrated on impact, but not before Patterson's crew jumped aboard the submarine with small arms and demolition charges. Royal Marines captured the submarine's bridge while naval ratings placed scuttling charges against the ballast tank controls. U-629 couldn't dive with enemy boarders controlling the surface access hatch. The submarine captain ordered his crew to repel boarders, but 12 Royal Marines with automatic weapons against 40 German submariners in confined spaces wasn't a fair fight. U-629 surrendered after 15 minutes of close-quarters combat. 2 captured submarines, 3 destroyed, 0 convoy losses. The Wolfpack that was supposed to devastate convoy HX-194 was eliminated by 1 destroyer,
and a fishing boat. Silence held.
Patterson stood on HMS Vigilance Bridge, watching the dawn sky lighten over calm seas. Behind him, convoy HX-194 maintained course for Britain, 43 merchant ships intact. U-168 and U-629 followed under prize crews, captured submarines destined for intelligence analysis and propaganda. The Admiralty received Patterson's after-action report with skepticism, then amazement, then immediate classification. Using fishing boats to attack submarines violated every accepted principle of naval warfare. But it worked. Within 6 weeks, Royal Navy destroyers across the North Atlantic were carrying fishing boat disguises, small launches equipped with minimal armament but maximum deception. German submarines found themselves under attack by vessels they'd previously ignored. The psychological effect was devastating. U-boat commanders could no longer distinguish between genuine fishing boats and disguised military vessels. Every fishing fleet became a potential threat. Submarine crews spent precious time and attention tracking civilian vessels instead of focusing on military targets. German submarine effectiveness in the North Atlantic declined 30% between June and October 1943, not because of new weapons or technology, but because British naval officers learned to think like fishermen. Patterson commanded HMS Vigilant for another 14 months. His fishing boat tactics accounted for 11 submarine kills, 4 captures, and hundreds of convoy ships safely delivered. He never lost a single merchant vessel under his protection. After the war, Patterson returned to his family's fishing business in Aberdeen. He bought a small trawler, worked the same waters where he'd once hunted submarines, spent 40 years pulling nets and checking tackle. When naval historians found him in 1987, Patterson was 73 years old, still fishing, still modest about his wartime service. He told them the secret wasn't complicated. You fight with what you understand. He understood fishing. The Germans understood submarines. Fishermen know patience, position, timing. Submarines require all three. Patterson died in 1994, buried in Aberdeen, overlooking the North Sea. His obituary mentioned distinguished naval service, but not the details. Local fishermen knew him as a man who understood the water, who could read weather and find fish when others came back empty. They never knew he'd changed naval warfare by thinking like them instead of thinking like an officer. Innovation comes from seeing familiar tools with fresh eyes. Commander William Patterson looked at a fishing boat and saw a warship. History remembers him for that vision.